Hey everybody, and welcome back to Shadow Tactics, the series. This is our final thoughts. So if you've missed the gameplay, go check that out and come back later.
Do it now. Now.
Do it now! So we've just finished
You're in for a
treat. You are in for a treat. It was a real roller coaster.
And a couple of tricks too.
Ooh. So we've just finished playing Shadow Tactics, a game wherein ninjas take on the forces of an evil daimyo who's trying to break up feudal Japan. And it's a one versus many game wherein the many cannot communicate fully and must try to sort of infer what each other want through logical guesses and subtle parsed information and hints. You know, the amount with which you want to communicate is entirely up to you, and you can communicate as much as you want, but everything you say is going to give information to the daimyo who is trying to stop you.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So you guys were the ninjas.
Yep.
And I was the daimyo.
The evil lord of the
Evil lord.
fortress.
And the game can be played sort of as a skirmish adventure game, or it can be played as a ongoing campaign game where you play different maps and you develop fortresses and gather goods and upgrade your ninjas and acquire sort of gear that you can use and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, but at its core, the game is a hidden information game. It's a bit of programming. I say a bit of programming. It's actually quite, for the ninjas, it's basically all programming.
Pretty much.
It's all hidden programming for the
Programming
ninjas.
ninjas.
And for the daimyo, it's all about anticipating what those hidden programming movements are and trying to be smart about the placement of guys. Because you can't kill the ninjas, you can only slow them down because your guardsmen suck. And the ninjas are awesome. But you can throw enough guys at the ninjas to slow them down enough that they fail to break up whatever their objective is to break. They fail to break what they're trying to break.
We don't actually... What are we trying to blow up?
And this, I think it was the gate to a castle.
Yeah, we're trying we're trying to stop the castle.
You're trying to break into the castle.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. I guess by this point the gunpowder's become so damp it cannot be lit. Mm-hmm. Let's not try to logic it. Let's just talk about what we thought.
I was going, it was daybreak.
The sun's come up and now everyone's going to see you blowing up the gate.
Well, they're going to see you trying to put the explosives there and stop you.
That's you, Mugen, trying to put the explosives there.
Just impaling people randomly as they walk out the door.
You did kill a lot of people.
This was such an apt mission to have as the side one.
I mean, Ollie had completed this, immediately.
Like turn 3, if that.
Kill the spearmen.
Yeah.
Yes, and you killed all the spearmen.
Yeah, and they still kept coming out that barracks.
So you've got little side quests, and these are part of the campaign. If you complete the side missions, in addition to the main mission, you get more stuff for the next game.
Mm-hmm. Still love the history
Also,
of health.
the outcome of he's also got a crazy sword card in there. But the outcome of the mission will also determine who gets bonuses in the next game.
Oh, that kills samurai. Oh, it was killing officers.
It just murders people.
In all fairness, he didn't really do a lot of that.
Michael killed most of the officers, I think. I can't remember. Anyway,
I definitely killed one.
A booby
So-
trap killed one.
if you are not into hidden information or guessing or sort of pokery type stuff, this game might be a bit of a challenge for you. But if you are into that, then this game does offer some very interesting and unique elements. I've seen a lot of games that sort of do miniatures with facing and ninjas or people stealthing around. There's obviously the sort of the traditional hidden movement type games, which I sort of refer to that, and what I mean is games where you're sort of moving around on a grid and marking where you are. Things like Scotland Yard, Letters from Whitechapel, or
Fury of Dracula.
Your favourite
Fury of
games.
Dracula, or the other one, which is Spectre Ops, that I think of. But this is slightly different because this isn't hidden movement. Everything is apparent. What it is hidden information.
So like a twist on it, isn't it?
It's sort of like a twist, yeah. Every phase you're setting up a bit more hidden movement, and then you're just sort of trying to... It's almost like Fury of Dracula meets Robo Rally.
Yeah.
If you haven't played Robo Rally, it's a robot racing game where you're programming orders into the robots. But because nobody knows what anyone's robot is doing, they crash into each other and spin off in directions
All
you
the
never
time.
intended.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious.
Yes. You also don't feel sorry for them.
And this is also kind of hilarious, although to be honest, I thought it would be a lot funnier than it was. And I think it may be just because we're filming it. But the screw-ups are a lot more amusing. Were a lot more amusing earlier when you guys were harder. I think maybe what happened was you got good at it, so that when we're playing this, it suddenly became very serious.
I just find these kind of things stressful anyway. But
They are mentally tiring.
they are mentally tiring, and that's a challenge for me. But
Wow,
but
that's
I
a lot
like
of
it.
self-sass.
But I like I like how this is different. I'm how many times have we said this on the channel? Loads. But they're not my
683.
favourite.
These kinds of games.
yeah.
Traditionally not your favorite.
Traditionally not my favourite. But I like how this twists. It takes a new stance on that kind of like hidden information hidden information like tactic. Whereas not the movement, but it's your but everything is clear, but it's like you're trying to work out what people are going to do.
Yep.
I personally don't know of any that are like that, but I probably haven't played as much as you guys. But I can imagine that this would be quite good if you are into these kind of games and really like that kind of
So I've played
playthrough. Then this could be something was really up their street.
I've played hidden programming games before. What's funny is that I've never played one that's been published. And I think that they often struggle to... Well, actually, you can look at an example of us playing one of them on the channel, which is Mission Control. I played with Ben and Chris. But that's kind of similar in that you're doing hidden programming, but you're all controlling the same unit and trying to get it to go where you want.
How many times did you drive it off a cliff?
That I felt that didn't really work. But this feels really tight.
Yeah.
It felt like it worked. I watched with chagrin as Mugen murdered everyone. And I was like, this can't be right. He is murdering everyone with such abandon, and I don't know how to stop it. And yet I won. And that is good because it means it's challenging, it means it's balanced, and I found it so engaging.
But what it does is, because, like, I don't know, if someone had played... Because we find it so difficult, because it's quite difficult to communicate with each other. Say if you had someone that was a bit more in tune, that knew these games or preferred these games, maybe like that. Or maybe it's just potluck.
Sometimes it is.
Then the game could have played very differently.
But I think the thing to remember is that this was the quick start guide. Like, we had all the most basic stuff.
Yeah.
If you're playing the full game, you actually get a kitty of money. You get a kitty of money at the start with which to buy these upgrade cards that are like sort of one-offs and stuff. And so I think, without getting into the sort of the nitty-gritty of it, but I think if you're playing with someone who's a lot more experienced or a lot more in tune with these things, you could sort of balance the handicap by giving someone a bit less money in the kitty. But also, I think that if you had experience, you would be playing sort of that full game with all of that stuff. And then you can somewhat mitigate for not player skill exactly, but what I mean is, if you know someone's good at it, you might buy things that make it more difficult. I don't know if there's sort of these so the daimyo can buy cards that put out more people on the board. At the start. And if you're playing against someone who's really, really good at these kinds of games, maybe you overinvest in those.
I have to admit, I liked the air of uncertainty. And this is the thing, like in a game where it's one versus many, there's often the position where whoever is slightly better at the game or who has got a better grasp of it will tend to lead.
Yeah.
You cannot
the
do
alpha
that on
gamer.
this. You cannot, because if you try to lead someone, all you've done is told your opponent exactly what you're doing.
And that's actually a really good point, Ollie. Yeah. I really like that.
It forces both of you to get to grasp with the game and to try to work together.
Exactly.
But also limit, like, you go, I've got to try and get a point across to you. I can't use any subterfuge. I can't hide what I'm trying to say with any deliberate effect. All I can try to do is convey a point and hope that you understood my meaning.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, that worked. Like, we managed to do a lot of really good combos together, but it's very limiting, and at no point, I don't know if, for me at least, at no point did I feel like I was leaving it entirely up to you, and I hope you didn't feel like I was sort of being the only driving force.
I felt I let you down a couple of times, Ollie, because I felt like I played a card incorrectly. But I think we were. I think that was. I think this is all part of the gameplay, because if they'd been played in a different order,
it would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing.
But
exactly.
that's the thing, and it's where a lot of games like this. We had it a little bit in, say, Spirit Island, where we were setting up chain combos, and in that one, it wasn't an alpha game situation, but we were actually going, and then I can do this, and then you can do this, and then we were both doing it.
I think that
a lot
is
of games that can happen.
I think that is good, because it allows it allows everybody to take an equal stake in it.
Yeah. I mean, Spirit Island I felt like we were working together really well.
Yeah.
I have this problem a little bit with Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition because I've played it so many times and I know the missions, at least in the core box, really, really well. Yeah. And so when I'm playing with someone who doesn't know how to play it, I'm sort of like, I really want to just relax and not boss them around because I want them to sort of enjoy it and discover it on their own. On the other hand, I have to make a very conscious effort not to do that because it's a very, very difficult game. The Arkham Horror Files series from Fantasy Flight are difficult. And you
don't want to feel like you're wasting your time, that you're going to just do 2 hours and just...
I don't want to do 2 hours and then just fail because I was trying to be nice and let someone just sort of do their own thing. Yeah. So, I have to find that healthy balance between helpful guidance and too controlling, Yeah. And I think I do it pretty well, but this game is impervious to it.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to even think about it.
If you try to do that on this, you've essentially handed victory to your opponent.
Yeah.
And if there's a better way of stopping that kind of behavior, making yourself lose, I cannot think of a better one.
I mean, it's honestly kind of poetic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you tried to take control of the game and the game kicked you in the groin and went, no, you play it my way.
Do you know what else I really liked about it? It felt super thematic.
Yes.
It really felt like it captured exactly what it was trying to do.
Certain moments, I did go... I in my head is like, especially when Mugen's just skewering people.
This fucking card,
But
no.
I actually emailed the designers about this card before this playthrough, and I was like, "Does this work the way I think it works?"
Yes.
And they were pretty much like, "Yep." And I was like,
"But I mean, that was fun." But every time I did that, I just had it in my head that he's like hiding in a shrub, and it's in like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where he's got like a little potted plant on his head.
Oh yeah.
And the guard walks past, and he's just like. And in my mind, he's done that, and then he's like,
yeah. But that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, I know it's I think for a prototype, it's actually quite good.
Yeah.
But there's obviously some very primitive things here that they've just not been able to do. But and obviously the art might change and things like that. But
they are updating these graphics here, I think, to be clearer, more distinct.
But in spite of that, like you say, that is exactly what I was going to say. I felt very thematic. I felt like I was in the zone. I felt like I was in Japan. And I think that's the whole essence of the gameplay, that it sucks you in because you're there wanting to try and optimize the best move, and getting that theme out of it.
And there's this really good sense
enables it to you, if that makes sense.
There's this really good sense of pace as well, where you guys were sort of like, you weren't just you were running, it felt like you were running through this town, murdering everyone, but at the same time, it didn't feel like you were doing it like sort of a rampage, It felt like you were sort of stealthily sneaking around doing it, There were moments where you stopped or you waited, in the...
hid the bodies.
Waited for Mugen to show up and murder everyone. And that was...
I'm in the koi pond!
That was really cool, and I kind of imagine him like running through the yards, cutting someone's head off and sharkening another person or whatever, and then his friends are just like, I'll just drag that into the bushes, I'm helping.
But I mean, they even... We did try to think about balancing who could do what, and that was a thing that Michael and I thought of, and we discussed before the game, because some combos work better together, and we didn't want to overly restrict one player.
You can easily sabotage yourself by taking two characters that don't work particularly well together, which means that you're going to have to collaborate more with the other person
who you can't
talk to.
Yeah. So one of our goals from the start was, think of people who could work well together, because the only person in this you can count on is yourself. You will hope that your co-player will help you. So we tried to divide up fairly well. So I think we did a good. I love Yuki's ability to lure, even though
you use that so much, and I was just like, stop moving my people around. Do you know how difficult it is to move these people around?
Well, stop having such gullible people. Okay, they hear a whistle and they go, "Oh, I'll investigate that," but I won't be alerted by it. But that's what I mean. I know we made the joke beforehand, but in my mind, every single alert was the Metal Gear Solid. Huh?
Yeah, and it really, even though it's hex-based Shogun stuff, it really captured that kind of sort of sense of a classic stealth game. We played another game that was sort of vaguely similar to this. That was a Kickstarter that didn't really work. I was just really keen to see this one working. I mean, there's all kinds of sort of like additional mechanics they've been working on that we just didn't play. Like, this is a gate that can be shut.
Yeah.
If anyone's left alive around it.
Yeah, if anyone's left alive around it. And that's kind of got this interesting mechanic where the ninjas then can't kill people on the other side of the gate, but those people can still see them over the gate. So there's all this kind of cool stuff that also feels thematic. There's a tower that allows people to see from one yard into the next yard.
Ooh.
And it's like all these sort of puzzles you're going to have to start solving.
Yeah. There's so much to it.
So there's so much to it.
Barely
But I
scratched
think,
the surface on this thing.
and I think it's great that it gives you all of these options to enhance it, and yet still at its foundation, it feels like eminently challenging.
For me personally, the one thing that I would like them to get sorted with the art, because I found it incredibly confusing while learning it, is all about being in a bush and moving from bushes.
Well,
What am I looking at? Who's looking at what?
This is an interesting sort of challenge where the guards are, if they're on a corner like this, they can see the entire junction, but they can only see their edge of a bush.
And I think if they just marked it or put a little fence or something like that to indicate that, without spoiling it, the art too much either. I don't know how you would do that, but just to make that visual that little bit easier for people to understand.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe people people understand it already, and it's just like me.
it's a fair one to do because
Fairly fair.
I got caught out by that on turn 1. Like I literally.
Oh yeah, when you like ran
literally
through there and
turn one.
alerted the guard, and you're like, oh shit.
Like, crap! I even knew it was a junction. But I mean, the thing I would have said as well about this, and I know they're fixing it, but I'm glad they are. The amount of times I've had to ask, so what colour's that? And
Right,
I mean,
the spaces, yeah.
well, that one especially because it didn't help that Mugen doesn't have the bloody card for that one.
Right, Mugen can't actually move through here. Mugen
Yeah.
has to trespass through the yard if he wants to.
Yeah,
move
and
here.
it was the amount of times I was looking for that card and I had to work around it.
And I think I kept looking, trying to find a red card because the tiles on the roof is red, and I'm like, no, that's black.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it.
But they
for a lot of it,
they
it's-
do help by putting pictures of the things in the middle. But I totally appreciate, and again, this is a recognized thing they've said they're going to fix. And what I thought was actually the game itself is actually quite complex. Like once you sort of figured everything out, it's quite executable. But there are a lot of concepts
Good choice of words.
that you have to. There are a lot of concepts that you have to learn. You know. When which guards are witnesses, when do they become targets, you know. It's also because it's so thematic, you really have to think about these things in terms of the theme, you know.
Yeah.
Like for example, Mugen murdering 2 people with that one blue card means that you've got to admit, this card is essentially, as we said before, him running out of the bushes. Maybe he shoots one with a crossbow while he cuts the other one's head off. So they're both kind of dying at the same time. So neither one of them can become alerted or pointed out or stop him. You know, whereas a card that's very similar but is red means it's like more of a direct attack. You don't have one. Does anyone who has the? There's a card that kills 2 people that's red.
I don't have that one.
I don't have that one.
No. All right.
Just one person,
Maybe
but it's
his other card.
that's just one samurai.
No. Okay. Well, I don't know. So there's I don't know what card I'm thinking of then. But what I mean is like so there
I
are
seem
these.
to remember seeing that one though.
There maybe it's it might be one of the purchasable quest ones.
Oh yeah.
So there's all these cards you can upgrade into that we were looking at. But, you know, if that card was red, it means it's a direct action, which sort of represents them more doing like sort of a direct charge attack rather than like popping out of a tree or a potted plant or whatever, you know, rather just charging across the yard, which is okay if there's just one person because they're like, oh no, and then they get murdered. But if there's 2 people, one of them sees you and steps in to stop you and then the whole thing fails, right? Yeah. And so
consequences.
when you picture it, you can really imagine it, but you've got to learn, you know, who's a witness, who's a target, when are they defined, how does it work differently for the 3 different card colors, which represent their different sort of states, hidden, stealthy, and direct, you know, and so there's a lot of concepts to get your head around, but once you've done that, it is reasonably executable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is, but I think, but then there's some elements that I think have just been put in to sort of play with this idea of challenging you to sort of remember everything. You know, it's a lot like in Galaxy Trucker. If you had all the time in the world, you could just build the best truck. Mm-hmm. But because you're on a time limit in Galaxy Trucker, you're inevitably going to mess something up, you know, and then you have to take that piece out and the whole thing falls apart. Yeah. In this, it's you can't communicate effectively. And it's like, why does the mat change between the actions and the movement steps? The way you play cards on this mat changes for no other reason other than it seems to be confusing.
Yeah.
And that's just to challenge you and see.
And I feel you could get severe AP with this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you could. That's why we got out the egg.
And that's why we
yeah.
got, because I could have been here for hours.
In some of the practice
And
games,
second
we were
game.
here a long time.
I would not have been. You'd have been abandoned at some point.
That you've just got to be like, oh, rip the plaster off. It's just got to be, got to be done.
But I think also there's a real danger of like overthinking it because you get lost in imagining all of these mechanics and possibilities and stuff, and then by the time you get to the end, you realize that you don't really have the information to make a more informed decision anyway.
And that's what I
so
was
you
getting.
just kind of go back to your first.
I have that very problem with a lot of games. It's like I remember like I'm almost thinking, how on earth am I winning this on the very first turn? I'm like, what? It's like that's dumb. It's
Instincts are good.
And I just go off on a million miles tangent, and I think that's I think I don't know. Maybe they might. Do you think they'd introduce something like a timer? Maybe not.
It's like speed chess.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think a lot of people have something like this at home. We had a 90-second egg timer here that we were using, but everyone's got one on their phone anyway.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But the miniatures that they've sort of shown are pretty good looking. Again, I don't know what size it's going to be in the end. If it's going to be a size similar to this, or if they'll make it a bit bigger. But I would recommend keeping your eye on the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
To see what they do with that. But I honestly really, really like this. It feels unique and interesting. It feels really fun and thematic.
Definitely feels unique to me, and very thematic, very much so. They were my two main takeaways from this.
It
seems very different, and from like that to One versus Many, and you can totally get sucked into the gameplay.
My two main takeaways were: don't drink strange liquids you find on the ground. It's never going to work out well for you. Demon samurai, but it's also a ninja.
The one thing I was going to ask you, Mike, is do you think being the daimyo could be boring? Because we have got all the decisions and we're like, what do we do? What do we do?
I had a lot of tough decisions. So I don't think there's an absence of tough decision making on the daimyo's part. I think that the danger with the daimyo role is that because you can't kill the ninjas and because they seem so powerful sometimes, it can become easy to feel like you don't have any agency or you're becoming demoralized. Like, again, when I was talking about getting these 3 guys in here to defend the objective, that meant it didn't mean that this was now impregnable. What it meant was this is the difference between Ollie having to spend 1 turn and 2 turns pregnating the fortress, right? So I'm always just playing for time. I'm never winning. I'm just buying more and more time. Yeah. And I think that you could easily become demoralized.
I think at times you felt like that.
I did feel a little bit demoralized sometimes, but I was just like, no, I'm not going to give up because, because and the other thing is, if I keep making it as hard as I can for you guys, like we just talked about the lack of communication, the challenges with that, and the challenges remembering just the sort of implementing stuff. If I make it as hard as possible, then in some respect, I'm partially responsible for your mistakes. And if I don't try, it will be easy for you. But if I try and you mess up, then, I've helped to cause that. And that's good because it means that we're that much closer to you running out of time and me winning.
Yeah. I suppose that's the thing is you've just got to accept that the way you win is not to kill your opponent. It's to keep them busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also...
And delay them and make their lives more challenging. Make them have more decisions. Every turn you spend waiting... because you're trying to regroup or reposition or you're worried about something is a turn that I've bought from myself. I'm buying turns from you. And that I think that
price in blood.
There is a danger that, with any game like this that has the victory condition predicated on a time limit, that can be, and this is one thing they circumvented that I really like actually, somewhat circumvented, is that if I'm playing to drag out the game exclusively, then that can mean the game can become a really long slog.
Yeah.
But what they did was make the best thing for me to actually just skip turns.
Yeah.
Which is a great way of sort of mitigating me trying to delay you like in the action phase by making your actions redundant, by making it then in the movement phase that actually I speed the game up just by skipping turns, so it doesn't become this long marathon.
Yeah.
It's also, it punishes us if we stick if we stick together too much, we're actively punished
Yeah.
by that.
Yeah.
Because if we're all in the same spot, that's and you do the search the bush. That's 4 turns we've lost.
Yep. So you have to because you don't want to go on your own.
Yeah.
Because a lone ninja is a good way for that ninja to become ineffective and get murdered.
Yeah.
But you don't want to all be in the same bush all the time.
You've got to support but not be stuck.
Yeah.
Which again is a great little tactic that you've got to work with.
And that's going to force you to collaborate more.
Yeah.
And challenge you to engage in the main challenge of the game, which is that you can't talk effectively. Although I do wonder what you're all doing when you're all sat in the same bush and not talking. It's like, shh, he might hear us.
Well, it's just like, but everyone's dead.
I killed them all. We can talk freely now. Schmoogan. Shh.
Yeah. Shut up.
They've literally all gone. They're so used to not talking, they just don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
They have no tongues. Except for Yuki, because she has to whistle.
Yeah. I think a lot of people really enjoy this. Check it out on Kickstarter.
Yeah, keep an eye on the Kickstarter.
Yep. Keep an eye on the Kickstarter. We'll see what they're going to do about this. I mean, personally, I love this sushi mat.
Yeah.
But I think they might be replacing it with something a bit
I think they're replacing it with something.
A bit more substantial.
Yeah.
more substantial.
They
More roll-upable components,
They,
please.
they actually painted that themselves.
I love that they painted it themselves. It's so cute. This is for rolling sushi on.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what this is. You put
That's
out the
the sushi,
seaweed,
yeah,
and you
and
put
then
the
you
rice
roll
on
it.
it, and this is how you make a sushi roll by rolling this up.
I really thought he was having me on.
No, they
No,
bought
it's
a sushi mat
a
and just
sushi mat.
painted it.
It looks it's bamboo rope.
The theme, guys, it's dripping in theme.
And something else, apparently.
Bit of soy sauce, bit of rice wine vinegar. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming on, checking out our videos, and coming on this adventure with us. We think this one's a winner, so check it out on Kickstarter, and we'll see you all imminently for another adventure.
Hope you enjoyed it.
See you soon.
Bye.